You're on a big time like summer America 250 tour, touring various businesses. You had a business tour today, press conference, and a big topic was power, electricity here in New York State. What was your message today? What'd you tell folks?
So we were out here in North Tonawanda, which of course is my home. Anytime I'm in Western New York and in District 62, it's a great thing. But when I'm in North Tonawanda, it's even better because I'm close to home. And I was at Confer Plastics, a place that I've known. I've known Bob Confer and his family and that business for a long time, both when I was mayor. In fact, I grew up in an apartment complex right in the shadow of Confer Plastics. And we were there talking, Confer is a manufacturer. And they use a lot of power, and they have a requirement for a lot of power. They run 3 shifts, blow molds, heavy machinery, and a 50-year family business that makes things all over the world. They compete against the Chinese, against all the people that try to rip off their patents and their intellectual property, and they need a lot of power to do it. And one thing we were trying to explain to folks and support people like Confer Plastics against some of the policies coming out of Albany and being championed by Governor Hochul and Senate and Assembly Democrats is this idea that, we need to cripple high energy users. So people like Confer Plastics actually need to pay taxes and pay, higher costs because they're polluting the rest of the planet, when in reality what they're doing is they're creating 150 jobs so people can put food on their tables and make a good product and live their part of the American dream. And what Bob was saying was, he's paying, he's able to buy energy at a little bit of a price break because he uses so much of it, so that he's able to negotiate, in a way that you and I in our homes don't have that luxury. We're just paying whatever the market rate is, so to speak, for power. But his concern is reliability. He needs reliable power, not just affordable power, but he needs to be able to count on that power. And he was comparing New York historically to places like Texas, a lot of folks, moving to Texas. But he said from an energy standpoint, our power traditionally up here, a lot more reliable in the Northeast than it is in certain parts of the South and Southwest. And what's happening in New York under Governor Hochul's leadership, under Democrats' leadership, is that the grid is becoming less reliable. That's why you have people like Mayor Mamdani telling folks, keep your AC on at 80 degrees, because the grid can barely maintain the base load today. And that's a result of upgrades not being done. It's a result of maintenance. There needs to be significant upgrades. And at the same time that that's the case, we're pushing people to electric, going all electric, restricting other forms of energy that would ease the burden on the grid. And we're pushing everyone to the electric grid, and the grid can't handle the load, the base load today. And the base load is what we need to be for industry and for our economy to run, both here in New York and across the country.
But on a humid day like today, isn't it bananas that, literally, they took it literally, the warmth of collectivism? Hey, keep your AC on 70 and 80, these Albany Democrats who are aligned with socialists. But you talk about the Republican GOP conference, like, hey, they are trying to take away your gas stove. We have actual bills that will lower your electric bill.
1,000%. It was brought up today, and I'll say it. Our conference has proposed numerous initiatives that would not only, provide rebates and relief to taxpayers in the immediate moment, today, but it would long-term reverse course, because we are on we are on a course where we are exporting jobs and we are importing power. Bob Confer said that today, 16% of the power that New York State is using is coming from outside of the state. Just today, like literally Wednesday, July 15th. And so, and that can fluctuate, but you're talking about 15% of the power that we need to meet the demand is coming from out of the state. Why is it coming from out of the state? Because we don't have the ability to meet the demand currently in New York State. New Yorkers are paying more for less. They are paying more for a less reliable energy source. We need to be 50%, Stefan, 50% of your bill is taxes and surcharges, courtesy of New York State.
Yeah.
So everybody wants to point the finger. Certainly, they always want the greedy utility. What you're forgetting is your government is greedy as well. And that is a big reason why you pay more than other states. We have proposals that would eliminate those surcharges, the NYSERDA surcharges, would return billions of dollars to ratepayers. And we also have a number of proposals that would reverse course on these CLCPA, all-electric, sort of the green new scam dates that they push that are driving up costs, reducing reliability, and it's going to cause New York to lose out on investment, on jobs. But here's another part that I just want to add before Angelo Morinello, who was there, brought this up, and it's a great point. Micron, they get an exception for natural gas. The Bills Stadium, we all love the Bills. We all love the new stadium. I was there. They are heating that field underneath, guess how? Natural gas. By allowing, I'm not criticizing those projects, but by the state giving those exemptions, it's an acknowledgement that the policies they're pursuing are flawed. Because if they weren't flawed, they wouldn't have to do those exemptions.
Exactly. On the live line right now, Rob Ortt, New York State Senator, Minority Leader. That's an interesting point that you made, Rob, where New York State is saying you can't have a gas stove in new builds. You've got to buy X amount of energy and all those mandates. And New York State's responsible for building the Bills Stadium, and underneath is natural gas. I mean, isn't it just another case of, rules for thee, but not for me?
Yeah, it's do as we say, not as we do. And it's also, again, it's if you're big enough, you can get a carve out, an exception. But for most of my constituents, they're not big enough. For the mom and pop manufacturer, for the machine shops, for the restaurant, they don't get those exemptions. So that's the first thing, right? That maybe is galling. But it also just, again, it underlies, if you need to do that, well, then there must be a problem with the policy. Because if the policy was so right and so good, and if it really was about the planet, then why would you make those carve-outs for those folks? And so it's hypocritical, it's disingenuous. The public knows. I mean, they're not stupid. You see that, you know what's going on, but it underlies sort of the intellectual vapidness behind a lot of these policies, these green policies, written by people in ivory towers and in government bureaucratic buildings with no windows. And it's very flawed. And so we were out there talking about sort of a real life picture of how this impacts an employer here in New York that's been here in Western New York for 50 years, that employs 150 folks. And, they deal with a lot of things, but one thing they need is low cost, reliable power. It's the same thing that, quite frankly, a lot of residents need. And if you don't have low cost, affordable, reliable power, we're at a huge disadvantage economically. And that's the path we are treading down if we don't reverse course. And the only way I think you're going to reverse course at this point in time, again, you don't like the policy, you got to change the policymakers in Albany.